I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard Knock Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard Knock Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah. Pop culture with a different
We're back.
perspective.
I hope you didn't miss Hard Knock Life too much.
Wow. 1 month later.
A month later. Last time we podcasted, there was so much hope in the world.
Mm-hmm. What was that? Doesn't that happen in one of the crisis event books? Like everything's going great, and then like white flash, and then 1 month later, like the
Well,
anti-monitor and like his army is like, wow.
well, the Anti-Monitor and his armies have now taken over, and we are here to pick up the pieces with
And
Dead
like
Supergirl.
right. And like again, much like how those crisis comics keep happening again and again.
Of course, I'm talking about the Chicago Bears losing to the fucking San Francisco 49ers yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to talk about sports because I think that particular sports contest is a nice microcosmic metaphor for several things that are happening, and probably none of them we would consider like good, hopeful things. But you can see a lot of things through the prism of that game in which the 49ers
Demolished.
destroyed their, but that doesn't even matter because the 49ers are on their way on the downslope too. So it's like
Yeah, but we're self-immolating, and you guys are just, riddled with injuries. I think that's the biggest difference. Like, you still have
Right.
competent play callers and players, and we're just like laying eggs and shit in the bed, firing coaches left and right.
Yeah, one could almost say there are two parties with different reasons for being failures, and yet they're both failures. Um,
Yeah, but so much has changed in the month since we podcasted last. And I think that cadence for this going forward might be what we do, where we come back maybe once a month or less and just check in with one another as the world burns.
I mean,
Joker style.
there is interesting pop cultural stuff going on.
Yeah, there will be. I'm just not as interested in talking about
I,
it.
fine,
And well,
but
this will also be a review, a year in review as
yeah,
well. This is the last
right.
podcast of
That
2024.
is so great. And keeping in mind, of course, this year did take about 7 years, not unlike 2020. Um,
Yeah, without the
uh,
pandemic, and yet here we are.
yeah, but at one point, remember when there was hope in the world, Andor, you were so excited to talk about the Bears. We have it on record. You being
Really?
all
No, I burned all of
hyped
those
from
tapes.
Hard Knocks. Yeah, the internet doesn't recognize you burning things. It's out there. I am so hyped about Hard Knocks. Season's gonna be great.
I meant my podcast, not the stupid football show on HBO.
Right. The Chicago Bears are not doing great.
They are not.
Um,
It got to the point yesterday when I was watching the game. I didn't finish it. I turned it off in the fourth
yeah,
quarter because it was like, what's the point? I think when Roma Dunze, your boy, scored his second touchdown and celebrated in the end zone, even though we were down
yeah.
25 points, I was like, oh, this is stupid. I'm not watching this game anymore.
Now, come on, that's a nice thing. Now
No,
that
it's
this
not.
look, this is a sports thing that I've always been curious about. Yes, in the middle of a losing effort, players will celebrate just a good play, like at the end of the game, right?
It's
And
one
of
thing to say
course
like
they know
high
what the
five
score is.
and like, be happy you got the touch. Yeah, that's fine. But like to do a dance to like when Jonathan Owens intercepted your like third string quarterback with like a minute left in the game and they ran into the end zone, did their
Yeah.
like big celebrate. Like that doesn't matter. You just picked off like their third string quarterback because he's playing because you're losing by 30 points.
Yeah, it
So
doesn't matter in the big
have some
context
pride is
of
what
the
I'm saying.
season. They're the pride of they're young. I mean Roma Duse has been trying to get it together to fulfill his rookie promise all season. On his personal arc, I'm glad for him. He finally had a big game, two touchdowns, losing effort, whatever.
Yeah,
And you can
whatever.
tell that Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze have been trying to get their rookie like synergy going this whole
Well, I mean,
season. And
and not to dwell too much on the Bears because I'm sure you want to gloat because your team's still in the mix. I
I
mean,
I am in the mix. I don't want to glow too much. I want
we are not. We are very much not in the mix because we lost we were, I think the last time we podcasted we were 4-2 and like everything was looking
Mm,
bright
mm.
in our season, and then we lost 6 straight games, 7 now, fired our offensive coordinator, fired our coach, and looked and literally like everyone thought, okay, we got rid of the coaches. The players have been blaming the coaches all season. Now we got rid of them. We're gonna play really hard for this interim coach who's, you know, gotten the offense back on track, and we shit the bed. That's
But
that's where
it's
I
just
am.
because you had such high expectations, as opposed to me, I didn't have any expectations for Bears. And again, just to contextualize this, everyone, the it this all goes with the theme of deja vu, which I've been experiencing a lot this week. Trump is president again. Weird things are happening in cycles. I'm trying to break out of the cycle to some extent. And it was and that game reminded me of, oh, it was kind of like a game a year or 2 years ago with the old Bears and the old dominant 49ers before any of this Caleb Williams event.
Yeah.
So I can understand as a Bears fan, one might feel especially discouraged or disheartened that the forward pulse of progress seems like it has gotten. Might appear that you're back in the same place as a year
Well,
or two
and
years
you
ago.
know, I think when we started talking about football on this podcast, Caleb Williams wasn't even a Bear yet. He was
Mm-hmm.
maybe a Bear, right? We were maybe going to draft him, and there was this whole debate earlier in the year about should we draft Caleb Williams or should we keep Justin Fields, who is now second string quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who will probably go to the Super Bowl. So who's got the last laugh there? But I will say, I wonder, like, one of the reasons I was always pro keep Justin and kind of build out the team, it wasn't because I had any animosity towards Caleb Williams. As you know, as soon as Caleb Williams was drafted, I became the biggest Caleb Williams fan. It wasn't a, I'm not going to root for that guy. It was because I
Mm-hmm.
knew back in January of last year, or I guess earlier this year, changing the quarterback is not going to fix the team.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone just thought, well, clearly the problem is Justin Fields. You get rid of Justin, you bring in Caleb Williams, and everything will be
Mm-hmm.
magically ponies and roses.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, that is not the case. Yes, Caleb Williams is a better quarterback, and he does things that Justin can't do. But the team is worse than it was last year. We were 3 Eberflus coaching fuck ups from making the playoffs last year. This year, we
Mm-hmm.
are 3 Eberflus fuck ups from being the worst team in the world and starting all over again. And in 2 years, we're going to have
Mm-hmm.
the same debate. Should we pay Caleb Williams or should we let
Mm.
him go and draft a new quarterback? Archie Manning will be the hot commodity in 2 years. We'll probably have the number one pick in 2 years, and we're going
Mm-hmm.
to play this whole fucking thing again, where we draft a quarterback, fire the coach, draft a new quarterback, fire the coach, and it's like it's
Yeah,
depressing. I'd
I
rather
see.
talk about anything
Meanwhile,
else than football right
oh well, now I'm just being a jerk
now.
because I was gonna mention. Meanwhile, over in the Justin's Field narrative, he's become a key part of a weapon in a team that, like the Teen Titans, just needs all the parts synergistically working at once under Mike Tomlin slash Robin's, coordination skills.
Yeah.
And
I mean, again,
they're
because it
good.
goes because the Pittsburgh Steelers build their team the right way. They have good coaching. Like Mike Tomlin's like the third Pittsburgh Steelers coach in their entire franchise history, right?
Indeed.
And they've built their team from the inside out. Their offensive and defensive lines are stalwarts, and
Yes.
then they build the pieces around them. Whereas we were like, well, let's get all these shiny pieces, like drafting a quarterback and a
They
wide receiver over the
do.
first 2 picks, and ignoring the fact that our offensive line and defensive lines are shit shows.
They do have some shiny pieces. Or maybe that's like a big market city thing, like Chicago, New York. They're just like, yeah, I gotta have quarterbacks and wide receivers and
Well, no, but Chicago's
stabilize the
always been
system.
the blue collar town. It's always been the not having the shiny pieces,
Interesting.
and that's
Yeah,
why I thought,
should be.
I think people were distracted by the Caleb Williams toy.
Including yourself.
Well, no, I wasn't. I was pro keep
Okay.
Justin Fields,
You're right.
the
Okay.
not great quarterback, but build a great team around him,
Okay.
and we would be in a much better place than getting the shiny new toy. Which the problem is, people just want the shiny new toy every couple years.
Fair enough. So back to questions of leadership. So who would you like to be the next coach of the Chicago Bears?
I don't
You
care.
know, Fair. But
Well,
that's
the
such
big
a
hot name is Ben Johnson from the Lions, who's their
uh-huh.
OC.
Yeah, the Lions
Because the
guy.
thing is, I don't know who's going to want to come here. And again, if we get a big name coach, are we going to play the same cycle again where the coach is like, well, I didn't draft Caleb Williams, and we
That
play the whole game in 2 years? Because we might fire the GM, and then none of our GM coach quarterback timelines match up, and then
right.
we start all over again.
But I mean, to what you just said, uh the coach effing up is like a key part of this cycle of madness.
Hmm.
So we could, I don't know, one could get in front of it and decide on a coach that you're
Yeah.
like,
Well, here's what we
really?
should have done. We should have just not brought Eberflus back this year at all, right? Like marry a new coach with your quarterback and then go from there. But this cycle has been the way the Bears have operated for the last 20 years. So like
Uh,
not just I'll just the last three quarterbacks. We drafted Mitch Trubisky with the number 2 overall pick in 2017. Our coach at the time was a guy named John Fox, who did not want to draft Mitch Trubisky. In fact, he didn't know the Bears were drafting Mitch Trubisky until the
yeah.
Bears drafted Mitch Trubisky, and he was the head coach.
In retrospect, he might have been totally right. But anyway, go on.
Well, right. Well, but here's the thing. Well, because the big story is in 2017 we drafted Mitch over Patrick Mahomes.
Oh,
But
okay.
I contend that if we had drafted Patrick Mahomes, he would not be Patrick Mahomes
Sure. Right.
because
Okay.
it's the dysfunction. What I'm getting at is the dysfunction of the organization. So we
Okay.
drafted Mitch. John Fox was the head coach. Didn't want Mitch, but we kind of gave it to him. Played a year under John Fox. Mitch's second year, Fox is fired. We bring in a new coach, Matt Nagy, who was the OC in Kansas City right now. So we're like, well, he coaches Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be great. And we actually made the playoffs his first
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Mitch's second year. That's the famous double doink where we lost to Philly off the field goal that hit both posts and went backwards.
Oh, really? Double
That
doink.
the double doink
I
game.
missed that one. Great.
Yeah. So
That's a rare one.
yeah, but that season was really good. We had a great defense. Mitch was adequate. Matt Nagy won Coach of the Year. We thought, okay, we've turned it around. And then the second year, Matt Nagy was like, I don't know, the wheels fell off. So we started getting bad. And
Mm-hmm.
Nagy was like, well, the problem is Mitch isn't my quarterback. And I'm on the
Mm-hmm.
hot seat. We're going to trade up in the draft, and we're going to trade for this exciting quarterback out of Ohio State named Justin Fields. So they drafted Justin Fields. And then their
Gotcha.
plan was to like have him sit and then learn the way Mahomes did. But this is the new era of football where you're not allowed to like have rookies sit and they all have to start right away. And
Right,
so
and
there
that's
was
weird. There's a
right. It
dangerous
used to
thing
because
going on
Mahomes
there,
didn't do
right?
that. Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers didn't do
Yeah.
that. So they
Yeah. Shiny
played
things.
Justin and they were in the team was shit. Nagy is fired.
Hmm.
They bring in a new GM and a new head coach, and they didn't draft Justin Fields.
Hmm.
And so Justin Fields' second year with a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, they tear down the roster. They get rid of all of their players, and they're basically tanking that season. And Justin's putting up awesome numbers, even though they're tanking.
Mm-hmm.
That season is the year he ran for the most yards as a quarterback, second to only like Michael Vick.
Mm-hmm.
So like very exciting. Like that's why so many fans attached themselves to Justin, even though the team sucked for 2 years.
Yeah.
Justin
Okay.
was like the shining hope for our future that we could build around this kid and perhaps we might be good.
Yeah.
But
Did he have a superhero nickname? No, he didn't.
uh,
He,
uh him, he is him is what
Captain Comment or something. Anyway, go on.
JF1. But
Yeah.
but similarly, Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus did not draft Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are in 2024. We have the greatest generational quarterback potential in the history of mankind coming in the draft in the form of Caleb Williams. And it's a no miss, easy choice. So we get rid of Justin, bring in Caleb. Meanwhile, all of the holes on the team have been there for the last 3 years.
Right.
We have bad offensive line production, bad coaching, yada yada yada. But we don't address any of that. We get the shiny new quarterback. We feel like we just changed the quarterback. Like what we don't realize is that as bad as the quarterback, quote unquote, as Justin Fields was, he made up for a lot of mistakes of our offensive line because he can run.
Yeah.
Because when the line breaks down, he can run for 30 yards.
Yeah.
And that's why, people just thought, well, we just need a quarterback who can sit there and throw the ball everywhere. And Caleb's putting up awesome numbers.
Yeah, numbers.
except for the
Voila.
wins. And
Right.
as Mina Kimes likes to say, wins are not a QB stat. But for whatever
Right.
reason,
They are
when
not.
Justin was the quarterback, they used that against him. Well, he only won 3 games in his, tenure as
Yeah.
Bears quarterback. Well, it's not his fault.
Yeah. I feel like this whole conversation is like our tryout tape to be part of Mina Kimes' entertainment empire somehow, which it's on the list.
We're trying to get Mina on the show, so
Yeah, or it could be on her show, honestly. But
yeah, that's true.
with our special perspective on superheroes and pop cultures and politics and so which we'll get to. Okay, but can we talk about Caleb Williams for a minute? As if he was standing in for AOC or Peter Parker before he learns the responsibility thing or something. I think he's a fascinating character. For one thing, really, really feel for the guy. He gets sacked like 20 times a game. You
Yeah,
know,
most sacks in like the league right
he's
now.
a rookie. He
57
just got to NFL. He's just getting smashed to the
Yeah.
ground constantly. That's hard. And another thing about Caleb Williams is, in light of everything you just said about the coaching, like throughout this whole season, the narrative has never shifted from he's talented and going to be a good NFL player, right? We've that's never actually. I feel
Yeah,
like that's
well,
never been
it
questioned.
hasn't. I mean, he's put. I mean,
That's
in
a
it's
there's
you're grading on
always
a curve in Chicago, though.
yeah.
We've never had a good quarterback, so like the numbers he's put up are astronomical in Chicago standards. But
Hmm.
just compared to the two other rookies this year, Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels,
Yeah.
like he's the one who was supposed to be the generational quarterback, the one that is leaps and bounds above everybody else. But this season, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix have a better shot at being considered rookie of the year, and they were
Uh
not. Like
yeah.
there was never supposed to be a
Yeah.
debate between Caleb Williams was supposed to be head and shoulders above the rest of the class.
Yeah. But then it gets to that thing of 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 leadership and how do you it's how do you you know
Well, I think what it shows you is that in football, it's not one guy. Basketball,
well
you could get away with like one guy
yeah.
being the difference maker. In football, more than any other sport.
But also, but also, it can be part of it is that it can be one guy, and part of the quarterback's role is to sort of rally the troops, be a Captain America's like
So
figure,
a great example is the team we
and
played yesterday. Your guy, Brock
yeah,
Purdy, Mr.
yeah,
Irrelevant, last guy picked in the draft
yeah,
versus the first guy picked in the draft.
yeah. How about that? Yeah,
But what does Brock Purdy have that Caleb Williams doesn't? Because again, Brock Purdy was playing with his third string running back, who I picked up in one of my fantasy leagues because I knew
totally,
that he was going to run all over the Bears.
totally.
Their third string running back, third string left tackle, like Trent Williams is one of the best left tackles in the world, and they were
Yeah.
on their third string left tackle yesterday. And did Brock Purdy get touched at all ever? No.
No, they looked systematically, offensively dangerous, and they
Jawan
just
Jennings
ran all
made you
over
think
people.
Brandon Ayuk who,
Yeah.
right?
And freaking that guy and his holdouts and his $70 million, whatever. That's part. That's
George Kittle fucking running wide open, the best player on their team is like, oh, we don't
yeah,
need to guard him.
yeah. Again, deja vu, but it's a cool way. And yeah, and freaking Oh, sorry, lost my train of thought. But you were
I
on
was
to
just
it.
praising your team because again, your team has a guy like Kyle Shanahan coaching. So you can bring Mr. Irrelevant, put him in that system. You can bring your third string running back up because every other running back is hurt. And I think Garendo left with an injury too. So
Yeah,
something is up in the water in
yeah.
Santa
They're
Clara.
all yeah.
But it doesn't, the thing is it doesn't matter because Shanahan's system, like that's just how bad
It
your
creates
injuries
a
have
team.
been.
It creates a team
Right.
that can operate without shiny name pieces
Hmm.
necessarily. Uh, yeah, which has always been a strength. Uh, but in this year the narrative was sort of like, well, the Niners, a lot of them demonstrated hubris of like wanting their big contract before they actually won a Super Bowl, and it seems like I don't know, there's some karmic thing going on there, and then a thousand injuries, and yeah, they're reassembling the team out of the non-injured people who are also not the big contract people, coincidentally, and they're good enough to beat your Bears on
Which is not
on one
saying much.
Sunday.
We're just not saying
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, which is it's not. So um
Yeah, so that's how my weekend went. I hope yours was better. Um, so not just the weekend. This is the end of 2024, which, as you said earlier, lasted a good 7 years. But here we are. We're about to hit a nice round number in 2025. Those are always those are always fun.
yeah, it should be, but yeah, I can't get over doing this MAGA Part 2 thing, which
Yeah.
is and that's part of the reason I've been immersed in sports ridiculously because I just am watching sports and not watching any of the news and
Which
lightly
is which
keeping
is
up with the
hard though,
pop.
because then you got like Nick Bosa wearing MAGA hats in your
Right.
49ers games too. So you can't
Yeah, right.
separate. You can't get away from it.
Yeah, that and yeah, that's truly ridiculous, but
Well, I
reason
don't want to talk too much about Trump and MAGA too, but like I will say too, what I find odd and kind of fascinating is
mm,
that the reaction to Trump 2.0 from like pop culture has been muted. Like I almost feel like, you're not going to see like Resistance 2.0 like you did in 2017. You know what I mean? And I
well,
almost feel
yeah.
like people are just going to be like, we're not even going to think about politics over the next 4 years.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and there are a couple I understand what you're saying, and there are a couple ways of looking at that. One is obviously it's just sort of a shock, like, oh God, and it takes it is exhausting to just think of like going through that whole trying to resist um the possibly fascist overtaking of the government. Sorry, I'm not being very clear. Anyway, point is the like doing it again feels weird, and then there's also maybe they're even stronger this time, and that's a little
Mhm.
fearsome. And then there is the idea that we've gotten so polarized, we have escalated in our heads like how much of how much of a conflict it has to be, and maybe I don't know. I sound like cheese eating for saying this, but like maybe it won't be terrible. Probably not. Probably terrible. I think like didn't France and Syria collapse as nation states this week? What am I saying?
Yeah, no, well, Syria definitely did, and France is
Um,
probably about to. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like hard to think about the state of everything and then look back on like the pop culture and think, does it even matter anymore? And like, there are things to look forward to from the nerd pop's perspective in 2025. Like Superman Legacy comes out next year, Fantastic Four comes out next year. There's like interesting things. Like, the most politically relevant movie from a comic book movie standpoint is probably Brave New World, that's coming out in a couple months. Um,
the Captain America movie, yeah.
yeah. So, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, and partially one of the reasons, just speaking for myself, why I'm not podcasting as much is that I'm honestly, I've been going through this for some months now, and this
Uh,
has nothing to do with the election or anything like that. I'm just less interested in like the shit that comes out all
yeah,
the time, and I'm not like, I know that we'll talk again. We'll talk a little bit about our year in review, but like as I was going back over the year, I was like, I didn't watch that much stuff. And the stuff that I liked is probably, you know, counterintuitive than what most people liked. And the stuff that I didn't like is counterintuitive to the things that most people like this year. So
yeah. But I remember that a little bit of that shell shocked feeling in 2017 even, and then and Black Panther did come out, and that like
that came out, yeah, that came out
if we
February after the
remember that
election.
was in 2018, if remember that was a surprise that it over delivered and was way better than it had to be, way more meaningful than it had to be. You know, um,
But I mean,
so
I don't think
I
Captain
wonder if
America is going to have the same like
I'm not
resonates.
saying that one specifically, although that one's very interesting for a couple reasons. But do you think like another surprising pop cultural moment like that first Black Panther would happen again? This is an idealistic way to think.
No,
I
not at
wonder.
least not in the next year. Again, Black Panther came out. I misspoke. 2 years after the
Yeah,
election.
yeah, exactly. So it might
But
take a year to
yeah,
sort
I
of
mean, but what's coming down in
reharness the
2026?
energy. Yeah,
2026. I don't even know what's coming out in 2026. Is that when the Robert Downey Jr. Dr.
yeah, I
Doom
think
movie
they're
comes out?
fast track. Yeah, right. I mean, it'll be yeah, the Doomsday and Secret Wars, and I don't know if they'll push it back or forth in the schedule. But if we remember, yeah, and in 2018, Black Panther and Captain Marvel, and that was leading up to, of course, Infinity Wars and Endgame. Endgame
Right.
rounding out that 4 year chunk of madness with sort of the Super Bowl of Marvel, movie experiences, definitely. And then that weird tagline of the ninth Star Wars movie, which kind of was a reality
Ruined
check.
it.
Yeah, right.
And
So
then the
all
and then the pandemic, where
right.
we all were just stayed inside.
Yeah, mother effer. So and yeah, so that whole arc of things I think contributed to us feeling uh you know uh feeling like cycles of stress and just extreme difficulty are just going to come again, no matter whether you get to the Super Bowl or not, whether you get to Endgame or not. But at the same time, maybe that cycle is life, blah blah blah. Not plugging for the next Lion King movie. Not that interested in that. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, do we even hope for that? Do we
Well,
even
I
hope for
will.
that
I will
rallying
say.
point to happen?
I will say. I think. I mean, the one thing that I'm probably most excited for is the Superman movie. And
Hmm.
I here's where I don't know, right? I,
Hmm.
Superman as a cultural figure is probably not going to resonate the way that he did 80 years ago, right? Like,
Hmm.
or even 50 years ago with Christopher Reeve.
Hmm.
But I am excited for Superman. I keep calling it Superman Legacy, even though it's just called Superman.
Yeah. But yeah.
Because I mean, I wonder what it's like. Because every all accounts is that this version of Superman is different from what has been over the last 10 years, and more of
Okay.
like supposed to be more of the kind of Christopher Reeve, you know, Silver Age comic book version of Superman,
Yeah.
like the hopeful Man of Tomorrow kind of superhero, which we haven't seen in superhero movies and since like the Captain America movies,
Yeah.
and even
Yeah.
like the second
Sort
and third Captain America movies, like Steve Rogers became like a cynical superhero,
yeah.
and it wasn't like the bright, hopeful Captain America.
Yeah. Sort of the old school template. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm curious to I wonder what it would be like to see a Superman movie like that in Trump 2.0, where
Right.
Lex Luthor is the villain, and and all accounts is Lex Luthor is very much in the comics mold. For the first time in a movie, he's going to be like corporate tycoon oligarch, villain taking on Superman, not just like wacky real estate developer.
Yeah.
Which again, I kind of also fits the mold of Trump, I guess, too,
Yeah.
as wacky real estate developer. But
Yeah, no, and
you know
it
what I mean.
is. And taking that also thinking about the Captain America movie a little bit too. Like James Gunn is in a place where he does speak to the bros in an interesting way. He's in this liminal fan space. It's of course been granted the
Yeah, I'm
keys
not
to
a fan of
DC
Creature
thing.
Commandos. I
Yeah,
watched the first 2 episodes and it was like
that's not the that's his like nerd like
id
I can
his
do a
nerd
deep
id.
yeah, I can pull a deep cut that even the hardcore fans haven't heard of, kind of thing. He exercises that muscle, and that's fine. But so for him to take on the most iconic, I guess, of all superheroes, which
Hmm.
represents, among other things, you know, alpha American power and kind
Truth,
of this
justice, and the American way.
this Uberman fantasy. Well, yeah, coming out the same year with the Captain America movie, who when the Captain America is a black guy now. Yeah, this is really no, this is getting interesting. I mean, like what kind of thing would you hope for? Like I seem to remember you say like you like the vibe of the Man of Steel trailer when it came out, right? But I don't know if you like who I don't know if you love
Man of Steel movie.
yeah, this I was
It
blanking
was
on the guy's name,
fine.
the Cavill the
Yeah,
result of it.
I like Henry Cavill as Superman. I don't like any Superman like performances though. Like I've he's the Justin Fields of Supermans. Like he had the
Uh,
potential to be a great Superman, but his coaching was what failed him. Because Zack Snyder is the Matt Eberflus of the DC universe.
okay.
If he had better directing, he could have been an awesome Superman. Because he looked the
Yeah,
part,
yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah,
and he there were elements of like that kind of Superman that I'd like to see in Henry.
yeah,
And Man of Steel, yeah, the Man of Steel trailer I love. It's one of my favorite trailers of all time. The Man of Steel movie I love a lot less. I don't
yeah, yeah,
love it at all. I kind of actively dislike most of it. There are
yeah.
parts of Man of Steel I like, and the whole third act of Man of Steel I hate with a burning passion. I
Oh
hate
yeah,
it so I'm
totally.
like
I get
Bruce
it.
Wayne in the beginning of Batman versus Superman.
Where you're like that guy, that guy. I'm gonna build a
I'm gonna build a
whole
kryptonite suit to kill that man.
right. I'm gonna build a whole amusement park of ridiculous gadgets. Just to that bank fight was so obnoxious. Anyway, yeah, okay. So I'll see your well taken sports analogy and raise you. Uh, I wonder if this Superman has any chance of being like the Tim Walls of super characters and bridging that sort of uncomfortable masculinity gap, which is to
And
me
then
the
fail horribly at the
and
end.
then fail horribly, but maybe not in the long term. Not it's
Yeah.
still it's an ongoing battle, never-ending battle for truth and justice. But that to me that is the overarching big problem that's my worry about the world every year, no matter who's in charge of the president is. The bro energy that kind of threatens to I don't know, take us far back to the Stone Age.
I mean, and
Pretty
it's wild. This has kind of become a Superman podcast because, like, one of the things I wanted to talk about is
well,
one of
he
my
is
favorite
the
things.
superhero.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one of my favorite things from this year was the Superman and Lois finale,
sure.
and this was the final season of Superman and Lois. I admittedly have been on and off about the show. I haven't really like caught every single episode. I will catch one here and there,
Yeah,
but it's the finale. It's the last DC superhero show on the CW.
yeah,
And as one of like the OG Smallville fans, I was like, I had to like watch the finale because it's not just the finale to Superman and Lois, it was the finale to the Arrowverse. And like I said,
right,
it was the finale to superhero TV on the CW, which
right,
started with Smallville.
right.
So I wanted to watch. And what I really admired about the episode was like, yeah, again, not being the biggest fan of the show altogether, I did like
Hmm.
Tyler Hoechlin's Superman. I liked Elizabeth
Hmm.
Tulloch's Lois Lane, and I felt like they were very much like two of the more iconic interpretations of the characters. But the thing that kind of like touched me at the end was like again, kind of thinking of the legacy and history of Superman on TV, particularly on
Indeed.
that network, is as a big fan, like Smallville kicked it off with a you know baby Superman, and the show and the character ended its life on the CW literally like Superman dies
Mm,
at the end of the episode, but he dies as a
mm,
father
mm,
and
mm,
like a husband. And it was just kind of like if you think of the long arc of Superman on the CW,
mm,
starting off as like I said, young Superman, young Clark Kent, boy Clark Kent, boyhood, Superboy basically, and then ending with two grown children
mm.
who also become superheroes in their own right. And I don't. It was like it's like
Oh,
George Lucas says. It's like poetry. It rhymes. It was
yeah,
just this great kind of like overarching thing beyond just the Arrowverse, beyond just Superman and Lois. Like I took it all the way back to that first episode of Smallville in
yeah,
2001, and it was just this beautiful like 25-year arc of
yeah.
Superman on TV, and which is great. And again, Superman's one of my favorite
And
characters,
yeah,
and it gives me hope to kind of like put that aside. Now, let's see what he looks like on film going forward.
yeah. And maybe you become a dad in that time too. Kind of hits you in
Yeah,
the feels
absolutely.
of,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
I mean, now, sorry, can you just disambiguate one thing for me about the Superman Lois finale? I got twisted. Was there something that like he was fighting Doomsday on the moon and that there was one after that? Like there was something like it was going to be cut off and there wasn't going to be one after that? Or
Well,
and
so
then there
like
was?
yeah.
Clarify something for me about that.
Did you watch the episode?
No, and that's
Oh,
fine. And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine. I
So
don't
no,
know which of the finale was.
the last episode, the very last episode was like the end of the Doomsday fight.
Okay.
And then Doomsday on Superman and Lois is actually like the Pokemon evolution of Bizarro.
Eh,
You know, like it started off as Bizarro and he kind of became Doomsday.
okay, okay.
And I mean the fight itself was fine. Like the first half of the episode was basically like a CG fest of like Superman punching
Ye- yeah,
Doomsday
yeah.
and then Superman punching Lex Luthor in his, battle suit,
Right.
which was like the steel battle suit.
Was it green and purple? No, it was.
No, but it looked like, I mean, in certain lights it kind of looked green and purple. And it was actually, I mean, it was pretty cool. It showed like you never got to see Superman versus Power Suit Lex in the movies. And again,
True.
it was cheesy CW CG, but it was fun. The whole second half of the episode was like it reminded me of like the beginning of Up, where it was just like a montage of like people just living their lives, but it was like un- unconsciously sad because like Lois, her cancer comes back and then she dies, and then like Clark starts aging and he eventually dies,
Mm,
but then it was beautiful at the end because like it shows kind of like his afterlife and he sees all the people in his life again, and it was like a beautiful kind of, like I said, beautiful ending to the show. And even there's a scene where he
okay.
forgives Lex Luthor, you know what I mean, and
Uh,
it's about the most Superman thing to do, you
yeah.
know.
Hmm.
But no, it was a beautiful
No, I
episode.
see it. I see
And
it.
but again, it got me thinking like, okay, that whole, like, my favorite incarnation of Superman so far has been Smallville.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like
Which
we are
is
entering this new era of not just Superman but like DC, and I'm still not sure about it. I'm still not like,
well, of course, because hitting you with the sort of the Superman music swelling with hope feels is actually is not James Gunn's strong suit for one thing. He'll probably pick some apt song which kind of like, you know,
right,
kind of shortcuts your way
some like
to
AM hit
hard
from the
motion.
70s. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and not to again make it all all about the guy, like all about one guy. That's our problem. That's another one of our problems these days. But it is a position of responsibility that is interesting to reset and just to come real with the ideals that are important, like forgiveness, like like equity, egalitarian ideas, and or we're just gonna be like a super strong dude who throws trucks at
Well, and I think,
people.
I mean, and the other thing too is that if Superman as a film fails, like, and take that however you want, fails
Hmm.
creatively, fails financially, then what? Because they've put all of their, again, going back to the Chicago Bears
Hmm.
analogy, they've put all their eggs in the James Gunn basket. This
Interesting.
whole
Yeah.
in this whole vision of the DCU going forward.
Yeah.
If it fails, do they reboot again?
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that scenario. You're right. I just take it as a foregone conclusion that, do huge business. But
Yeah, but people
I
thought
didn't.
you put Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman in a movie together, it's going to make $1 billion, and that didn't happen.
Well, also, but we understood that it was kind of a crap movie, right? I mean, like, I think part of the Batman versus Superman was, right?
Yeah,
Like, it did enough business, but it was just like, like
creatively
I
bankrupt.
again, I'm trying, timelining the whole 21st century so far. Like, a lot of the energy from the DC side came from the kind of a consensus feeling that the Nolan films you know, were big, were artistically, aesthetically, an achievement. And of course, that's debatable right now. But at the time, remember, like,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I
for
mean?
sure.
They weren't cheesy superhero movies. They
Right,
elevate that they drew a lot of energy from that, in that just like, oh yeah, now we can go like make like a a prestige superhero movie.
right.
Um and then sorry, what was the
But Batman v Superman was not it.
right, right. And anyway, right. And then again, yeah, so we could get back to this year and like uh if it comes out it's just kind of like, like Thor 2, it's like, that's okay, but like
And then honestly, like,
it's
is
like
the
DC and the Bears
audience?
again, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. is
Yeah.
the audience appetite there? Not just
Right.
for like Superman, but for like
It
superhero
could
fatigue
seal
is
the
real. We're not
right,
sure the Marvel movies are going to hit next year.
right, right. Um,
We might be interested, but like as a general, like the what are the big movies anymore? Like
yeah.
Wicked, I think is the closest thing to a cultural phenomenon we've seen at the movies in some time. But
Right.
there's nothing what like Barbie and Wicked have been like the two probably most, consequential from a cultural zeitgeisty thing. That it hasn't
Yeah,
been a
and
superhero
those
movie.
drawn from toys and a
Well, and they're definitely more
well-traveled
feminine
book and
coded
musical.
too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Yes,
that's
and that's
important.
great. Yeah. Right. We didn't even mention Wonder Woman in the 2016 2020 arc, but that was an important thing too. Right. I guess I was getting back to like we have fatigue and we something like Black Panther or that first Wonder Woman movie would be required. Something that does something extra, basically.
Mhm.
Um,
And that's what I mean. Like, I don't know if Superman. I mean, like, it might be
I
fun
don't
to
know
get
either.
the bright-eyed Silver Age Superman again, but to your point, is it going to be culturally significant in 2025? That
Right.
I don't
And
know.
it would be so weird if what if it was Shang-Chi too? I know everyone's like cynically doesn't think that's a scenario that's even happened, but what if the next Shang-Chi appearance was the cultural
Yeah, that ain't happening.
shifter? Yeah,
That
that's
ain't happening.
well, that's what you say, but at one point Wesley Snipes was going to be Black Panther in a middling uh
Right.
B grade movie, and then someone had a different idea.
Well, but I
Uh,
think to your point, it's the convergence, the perfect storm of someone as high caliber as Chadwick Boseman and Ryan Coogler coming together. Like that was the kismet. It was high, like prestige, high profile actor, prestige, high profile director with this character in a political moment, right?
and just like the perfect take, the perfect
And the
angle.
perfect take, right, right.
Um, and that is something I'd say that's something we all need. I'm just gonna be like
Yeah. No, I mean,
hit me for a second. We need it as a people.
yeah, it would be nice, but
Fandom.
again, I just don't know. And I think the world has changed, like just the world of how we think about these things has changed even from 2018 to now. Because like,
Yes.
Wonder Woman's a great example. In
Yes.
2017, it
Perfect.
was this like, you know, feminist
A big step
and
up.
yeah, but now it's like, well, that's Gal Gadot. She's a Zionist,
Right. Where
right? You know what I
every
mean? So what
single
are the
thing
undertones of
is.
Wonder Woman now if you know that her politics are kind of enmeshed in that? And then you not to mention you already have like I think even more so now, maybe they're emboldened by the election, the kind of like the worst people on YouTube, the worst people on Twitter reactions to these like if Black Panther comes out now, what will the cultural like fight be between like this is an important milestone for people of color and black
Right.
people in particular and the mouth breathers who are
Right.
more emboldened now than they were even 5 years ago.
Right. But they're still doing very knee-jerk reactions, and they just don't have interesting things to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, it's that thing. I don't know. It's that thing you're not expecting. I don't even know what I'm trying to expect, but it's that thing you're not expecting, which will
Well, but
change our
it might not
moods
come
on
from
the.
the superhero world.
Absolutely, it doesn't have to. Yeah, sorry,
I
I
mean,
didn't mean
here's
to
a
stop.
but I want again, I go back to Wicked is a great example. Wicked is this
Hmm.
like cultural phenomenon right now where it's the biggest movie that's come out in a while and it's got merch everywhere. The songs are, these are 20-year-old songs. Like I know these
Yeah,
songs from the stage play
yeah,
and they're getting new life on TikTok and on like they're playing them on the radio. Like they're playing popular on the radio, which is
were they?
wild.
Oh, that's great. It is totally a radio pop kind of song.
But I mean, but this is like this. It's the same song that came out 20 years ago with Adina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, right? But now it's got this cultural cachet that it hadn't had, and it's like kind of got a lot of queer undertones. It's very, like I said, it's very feminine coded because it's
Yeah,
about the character, and then you to your point, you still see like they made Wicked woke, and like have you like it's a Broadway
yeah.
musical.
Wicked. Woke
You know
Wicked.
what I mean? Like
And also, could I just argue that's another, nostalgia marketing thing? Like The Wicked is just it's a safe bet in many ways. It's in a
But is
certain
it
kind
though?
of mo
Because like I want like Broadway musicals haven't really translated to like box office success before.
Yeah, but it's in right. That's its detriment. Its merits are that it's in that millennial sort of nostalgia
Right,
space,
right, 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 right.
and a bunch of the songs are definitely yeah. And were you into it in your musical
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
likings of things?
my daughter's kind of gone the full like, she's kind of gone full 180 because like if this had come out 7 years ago, she'd be all about it when she was like 10 years
Mm,
old. But now she's like a cynical teenager, and it's like
right, right.
she wouldn't be caught dead listening to it. But
Maybe you're
or she's very much like the nerd, like the the stuck up nerd all about it, like listening to
yeah.
like the current version. It's like it's not like the original.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, indie cred. Does she have the prescience to know what's coming around the corner?
No, I think this is the other
Possibly.
thing is that like her generation, Gen Z and younger,
Doesn't even think like that, or do
are
they?
cynical about everything. Yeah, they're all like cynical. Like I don't think they want. That's why like the well, you and I being Gen X or elder millennial or whatever generation you want to put us in,
Mm,
where we saw like the Kamala Harris campaign kind of echoing Obama, thinking, oh,
right.
this
Yeah.
is the positive, like
Yeah.
uplifting, and it was like, no, fuck that. we want, we
Yeah,
don't
that
want
didn't
positive
take.
uplifting, right? We
They didn't want a song. They didn't have a
they
song
want
even.
like I mean
Yeah.
the Gen Z voted for Trump. Like Trump,
Mm,
what we didn't break down because we podcasted before the election is that like every county shifted right, every demographic shifted right, every race category, every subgroup, everything went the other direction from where
mm,
we thought the world was.
yeah. Or a certain amount of people didn't vote, but okay, sorry, not to
But
get to the yeah.
not voting is
Which
voting.
which ends up in shifting right, right, okay.
Yeah, not
The
voting, that's a
results shifting
choice.
right.
That's a
Yeah.
choice too. But anyway, I don't want to dominate the conversation real quick. I kind of said what my favorite and least favorite things kind of were. I mean, there was a bunch of things I left out. But what about you? What looking back on 2024, what stood out as a favorite nerd pop thing, and what was one thing you could have done without?
Oh man, I didn't have that prepared at all. It'll come to
Just
me.
off the dome. What was the just looking back at the last 12 months? Anything stand out?
That the Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. That
Yeah,
name that
well, that makes
sounds
sense.
that's it's a ridiculous thing to say, but that game, for one thing, it's hella woke and it's awesome. I'm not even gonna try to qualify it. It's just like it's like queer and you get to be a black guy or his daughter and just things that are a little non-standard in the video game space and the story was just great and again like I said it was sort of like the the DC Endgame moment and of course everyone hated it. I'm still in the minority of oh yeah and that's a news thing like they're supposedly ending the run of that game. It was supposed to go on for several years, but they're going to release the episode so you can play as Deathstroke, which obviously some people are going to want to do, and maybe like uh you know uh prematurely cut off their big plant. I don't know. I hope that changes, but it looks like they'll be done after this year. Anyway, that was a good thing. And yeah, and the new thing out of Deja Vu is that like made this comic book concept album, which is coming out next week, and I don't know, maybe that'll shift my personal needle. And
Mhm. Yeah, no, I know. Like,
you
I
want
mean,
me
those
to?
are the two things that have kind of like dominated your time over the last 12 months, who playing the video game and making your album. So it makes sense that
Yeah,
those are the two things that stood out in
I
2024.
made a
I
song
mean,
about the video game. I was trying to. Well, anyway, go on.
what I was gonna say, I think like both of us kind of have like the cognitive dissonant, especially when it comes to like DC properties, right? Because to your point, everyone hates Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. You loved it. Everyone
Hmm.
hated Joker Folie à Deux, and I kind of loved it. So like
Oh
we're in
yeah,
we're in the same space when it
yeah,
comes to like the things everyone loves, we don't necessarily like, and the things everyone hates, but this is the stuff we like. So that there you go.
yeah.
Anyway,
but not by design. It just
No, I'm not
plays
trying to
out
be
that way
contrarian. It's
somehow.
just kind of how the cookie crumbles. Before we go, I actually have a project I want to announce.
Great.
We did all. I did not plan this, but just it makes sense because this podcast was mostly about DC movies, and I'm bringing back an old podcast that's been lying dormant since before the pandemic. And it was originally called DC TV Classics. It was a podcast I did with Brittany Monet many,
Mm-hmm.
many years ago for a network that doesn't exist anymore. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when we kind of like revisited old DC TV shows.
Mm.
And right before the pandemic, me and a guy named Adam, a Starcaster, we kind of like it was supposed to be like just a mini series where we were going to watch all the DC movies that have come out.
Mm.
And we did the first 10 films in the DC film canon, starting with Superman and the Mole Men in 1941, all the way
Superman the Mole
through
Man.
Batman 89. And we
Yeah.
actually recorded that episode on or we released it on June 23rd, 2019, which
Yeah.
was the 30th anniversary
Yeah.
of Batman.
Really quick, did you touch on that one Wonder Woman movie from that area with
No,
Kathy
it had to be
Griffith?
theatrical because I wasn't
Okay.
theatrical. So
Okay.
these are the first 10 theatrical films in the DC film canon.
Okay.
So that was the seed.
Cool.
So what I've done since is rebranded that podcast as DC Multicast,
Great.
and it will
Good.
just be about the
I like
DC
that name.
movies.
Okay.
So the first 10 films we've reconfigured to be the first season of DC Multicast. You can find it on hardknockmedia.com and everywhere you get podcasts, just Apple and Spotify.
Mhm.
But go to hardknockmedia.com DC #multicast, and you can find the first season, which is the first 10 films, Superman and Mole Man through Batman.
Right.
And I'm announcing right here, right now, for the first time ever, season 2 will be the
Excellent.
next 10 movies in the DC film canon, starting with Batman Returns, all the way through 2009's Watchmen.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
what's going to be different this year or for this season is that it's going to be a different co-host every episode where we're going to hopefully, knock on wood, I'm still working on, finalizing the guest list.
Okay.
With some big time names, hopefully. I don't want to say who yet because nothing has been ironed out, but hopefully some big celebrity maybe names coming in to talk about certain DC films. And hopefully, Dominic, you can join in on one of them because I'm sure you have thoughts on some DC film canon.
I'll fill in any spot in the roster that is needed for that period.
So that will
probably
take the
so.
priority over Hard Knock Life in at least the first part of 2025.
Great. Yeah. And so it's you discussing the movie. It's not you like live watching it and
It could be.
or
So
the
first season is
why
a
not?
mix of
Why
both.
not?
Like we've done
Okay.
where like Adam and I were like kind of like watching it and doing commentary.
Yeah.
So you could just like play along, like you could pop the film in and play along, or it's just kind of like watching and breakdown. I think because this is gonna be more like interview or like guest driven. It's mostly going to be have them watch the film, and we're gonna talk about the film.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring it back this year for two reasons. One, it is the 30th anniversary of Batman Forever in 2025, which is wild.
Forever.
And
Okay,
as we
great.
said, Superman Legacy comes out this year. So like it made sense that like DC will be back in like the zeitgeist, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to like look back on the history of the films that predated this new version of the DC studios.
Literally at the turn of the millennium, that period.
Yeah. I mean, so season 2, just for what it's worth, let me pull up
that period will, if I'm not mistaken, cover the world before there was internet and the world after in a little bit, or before there was internet all over the place.
Yeah, so like here are the next 10 films that we'll be covering in season 2 of the series.
Okay.
Right? So like I said, we left off on Batman. So we're going to come back with Batman Returns, right? Which makes sense. And then it's Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin. So it's 3 Batman movies off the gate. Then Steel, the Shaq movie.
Yeah. That's when
Catwoman.
You're right. Catwoman. Okay.
So what were you gonna say about Steel?
I was just gonna say that's one I can never remember whether it existed or not. It's like the Charlotte Hornets.
It's like Kazam.
Yeah, I was like, did that one exist? Anyway, go on. It did exist. Okay.
I'm wondering if you want to do this one. I'm gonna put it out there. Constantine. I don't know if
Constantine.
You're a Keanu guy.
I'm not that familiar of that's
which would make it even more fun.
It might make it more fun. Okay, yeah, good. Pencil me in, yeah.
The first the only one that has an Asianish lead, right? Then Batman Begins, Superman
Again,
Returns,
right?
The Dark Knight, and it rounds out with Watchmen, which is kind of like the perfect season finale
Yeah,
because season 3 then will be dominated by the Zack Snyder verse.
yeah, totally.
So maybe it kind of works because it's basically every 10
It's
films will be a season.
yeah,
So we
and
end this season with Watchmen, and then we
I
come
think that
back with
sounds
the
great.
Dark Knight Rises, and then the Snyderverse.
And I think that's fascinating because artistically, again, you can see so many choices being made over that arc.
Yeah, so
You know,
this will be kind of like my podcast du jour for the foreseeable future.
great, and it resonates with so many things. I mean, just again, the both centuries colliding and the change in our culture before superhero fatigue had really like existed because the whole machine wasn't in place yet. You
Yeah.
know, the machine was sort of decentralized and just coming up every couple of years, and you know, Batman again. Wow, great. But with so many different takes, so many different ways of looking at what Batman meant at different eras.
Yeah, and it's perfectly set up to have at least 5 seasons of content,
Yeah.
especially if I'm doing the 10 movie blocks. And
Well,
they all do seem to be perfectly themed because, like I said, season 3 starts with this is what season 3 will be. Just for those of you planning with the far future,
yes.
season 3 starts with Jonah Hex, then Green Lantern,
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah.
and then The Dark Knight Rises. Those would be the first 3 episodes of season.
Quite a triptych if we're talking.
Right, exactly. And you know, Green Lantern's actually a good like entry into that season because Green Lantern was their initial attempt at creating a DC universe. If you watch it again,
Sure.
it was they were trying to make Iron Man
Sure. They totally were. Yeah.
and just failed.
Yeah.
You know. But then we go right into the Snyderverse: Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Aquaman, Shazam. That's season 3.
Mm-hmm. But again, the periods are oh, is that 10 years also? God damn.
No, that's more
It's not
condensed
quite 10
because
years, right? Yeah.
they started making more movies.
Sure. They're
The reason why they cover such large periods of time is they didn't make that many movies back then.
right.
So yeah, this will span from 2010 to 2019.
Okay.
And then season 4 starts with Joker, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 84, The Suicide Squad, The
Ooh.
Batman, Black Adam, Shazam 2, The Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman, Lost Kingdom, and Joker Folly Day.
And
It's gonna be
somewhere in there we got the pandemic when movie theater
that'll be the Suicide
stopped
Squad
existing.
and
Yeah.
Birds of Prey. You might come back for the Birds of Prey episode.
Absolutely. Wow. And DC multicast, right? Good
DC multicast.
good concept, good
coming
name.
soon.
Great.
Coming back soon. And if it's a hit, maybe we'll do like a side project of like the animated movies that were released theatrically or the kind of like Vertigo movies like V for Vendetta and whatever, you know.
Right. Those count in a way, but
In a way.
also not in a way.
Yeah. I mean, because if I do throw this in, it throws off my thematic seasons. If I put in like V for Vendetta or History of Violence or those kinds of movies.
Yeah. Okay. But no, I'm looking forward to just thinking about those and revisiting all of that shit.
Yeah, it might be fun. We'll see how it goes.
Excellent.
Be on the lookout.
Yeah.
There'll probably be a trailer on this feed soon, and we'll get that kicked off. But anyway, Dominic, that's Hard Knock Life for 2024.
Yeah. Good luck to us all.
Good luck to us all. Where can we find Dominic Ma and 12 Valentines on the internet?
I'm Dominic Ma, DOMMAH, and 12 Valentines debut album will be coming out this week-ish for December 14th, which is Hug Day in the Korean Valentine's calendar-ish. And it's a comic book themed concept album. But you can take it both ways. They're also just nerdy love songs. And I've put a lot of work into it, and Gail Simone approved of one of our songs, that relates to Secret Six, and just find 12 Valentines. Find 12 Valentines on Bandcamp, Spotify, YouTube Music, or any of the places where you stream musical experiences.
And for what it's worth, the social media that du jour is Blue Sky, which we are all on.
Yeah, Blue Sky. Things are happening on Blue Sky.
And we're not. The only thing I don't like about Blue Sky is that it's like everyone's is the god awful long URL name.
Yeah, they're really long. There's a way to circumvent that, but it's a little complicated.
Yeah, they need to do something about that.
Yeah, and also, let's be honest, it's not as chaotic and innovating in that way, and I think that's the thing everyone's going through. It's not as terrible. Oh my gosh.
But that's where you are. You are.
Oh yeah,
active on Blue Sky.
I'm on Blue Sky, and I just say I'm Dama most of the places. On TikTok, I'm Dama1. So
right.
For what better or worse, my name has that much branding.
You can find me on Blue Sky under Real Child a bunch of other letters. But find the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color on all platforms. We're still on Twitter at the Nerds of Color, but Instagram and Blue Sky and YouTube especially for the videos. We're still pumping out content on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And go to hardknockmedia.com for this podcast and all the podcasts, including DC Multicast, which will be coming soon. Season 2 coming soon, very soon. And yeah, that's Hard Knock Life.
Yeah. Wait, spoiler alert, is Superman's kid in Superman Lois, is he gonna be a Superboy or something like that?
Yeah, he's got 2 kids on the show, and they're both like got superpowers. And they ended the episode with like the 3 of them plus Steel and his daughter like flying to save the day. And then it flash forwards 30 years to like when they're grown men and Lois dies and then eventually Superman dies. But dies of old age, not of doomsday. It's very nice. It's very sweet.
Okay.
And one other full circle moment, just to bring it all the way back to the beginning, even though we started talking about Caleb Williams and the Bears on this episode, it does fit thematically because you asked about Justin Fields' nickname. He doesn't have one, but Caleb Williams' superhero nickname is Superman.
Is it?
It is Superman.
Wait. I'm sorry. This would be a whole other subtopic, but you brought it up. I have to bring it up. In to who?
Well, here's where I'm not
fandom?
Sure. He apparently is a Superman fan because like there've been like videos of him like in his apartment with like Superman comics on display, and he's talked about like being a Superman fan. But I think it's also like he's a conceited asshole and he thinks he's Superman.
Well, okay.
In the Cam Newton sense, like I'm Superman on the field too.
Cam Newton wasn't a Superman. Yeah, that was his.
Oh, Cam Newton did the whole shirt. His Selly was the shirt rip.
Oh yeah, he fully took that on. Yeah, the reason I brought it up was because they also, on the talk shows they called Josh Allen Superman all the time, and that annoys me because basically he's a hulking white guy, and
Well, but Caleb's Foundation's logo is the Superman shield with CW in the middle.
Okay.
Well, and CW kind of is also a nice.
That's part of his identity. He's self-assigned, you would say, for good or ill, self-assigned. But when they talk about it in media, they tend to only analogize white quarterbacks to Superman. And
even though the most famous Superman.
You're right. Cam Newton,
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, okay. No, you're right.
Dwight Howard.
Newton and Shaquille O'Neal.
But that's a good distinction to make because the Shaquille O'Neal, Dwight Howard Superman thing. Shaquille O'Neal calls himself Superman because he is a Superman fan. Like he's like legit. I mean, he starred as Steel, right? Like that's one of the things. Dwight Howard, his Superman shtick was based on the hip hop song. It had nothing to do with like the actual superhero, right? Okay. So that's people always like think that Dwight Howard was, he was not a Superman fan. Shaquille O'Neal was a legit Superman fan.
Yeah, and then there's that new Kendrick album, and he name drops a bit of Superman lore and some Marvel stuff in one of the tracks.
Harley Quinn, I think he.
And Hey Now, and or it's a guy rapping with him. And anyway, blah blah. We could go on all day.
Yeah.
Good talking.
Well, have a happy holiday.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in the new year.
Yeah. Good luck, everybody.
This is the hard knock life, but not the chicken kind. More like the people in the world.